Hello, my loves. I'm very, very, very excited today to be able to do a full review of Sirian Shadow's The Haunted Manor Oracle. I wanted to do this before too much time went by because this deck is, I'm just going to say right off the bat, an integral part of my collection, if not in one of my top 5 favorite Oracle decks of all time already, which I know I still need to do. We still need to do that. We still need to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to do all the things this year. We have this whole year to just be in lusty joy together. So I am going to do that, but I am deeply in love with this Oracle deck. And so I wanted to speak to the deck itself from the perspective of having used it in client readings the last few weeks and been using it daily myself as well. So I think I can really speak to the personality of the deck and to how I am drawn to work with it. And in the description box below, I will put the unboxing video where I talk more about, the aesthetic of the deck. This video is going to be more about the deck's personality and how I work with it in case you have the deck and want to connect with it more, or you're on the fence about purchasing it. I don't know for how much longer Sirian will have the deck available. I'm definitely going to purchase a second copy. That's how much I love this one. This deck was gifted to me by Sirian, but I want to have a second copy in my collection as a backup, especially after my Earthbound Oracle debacle, which I've talked about on the channel last week as well. So I want to make sure that I have a copy of this deck so I'm not without it. That's how powerful this deck is. So let's talk about quality. The deck quality is, in my opinion, beautiful. I've been shuffling with abandon and haven't had any major scratches or wear and tear happen over the last few weeks. The edging still looks gorgeous. The backings are still beautiful, and the matte cardstock still looks great. So it's lasting well. I want to talk about what this deck does for me as a tool. It's very effective in daily draws for understanding general energy that I'm interacting with. I've also really found that this deck speaks a lot to my emotional realm when it comes to my daily draws. It's very easy for me to pick up on what's happening kind of behind the scenes or underneath the undercurrent of what's happening throughout the day. I find that I can come back to the card pull of the day from this deck and really see the nuance to the emotional roots of where I might be at that's affecting perhaps how I'm perceiving something or how I'm interacting with others. So I definitely love the deck for daily draws. It is a kick-ass clarifier to tarot, and that's predominantly what I've been using it for in client readings, especially Tarot of Vampires. Tarot of Vampires and the Haunted Manor Oracle, they will fuck with each other all day long. Like all day long, no problem. They are there for it, baby. And it is a joy to watch. Let me tell you, my voyeuristic self loves seeing these two hang out together. It really, really loves my Tarot of Vampires deck. And aesthetically, they blend beautifully together. Just absolutely gorgeous. So if you have the Tarot of Vampires deck, I think you might find that this is a great clarifier. It's also a dark themed deck aesthetically. And so I think if you have a lot of dark themed decks, or if you have a few dark themed decks in your collection, this is going to work really well with it. And incidentally, I have recently used it with the Ludi Lescott Tarot as well, and they worked really well together. But here's the thing. It also clarifies traditional Rider-Waite-Smith beautifully. This is just a great all-around clarifier. The other thing about this deck is that you can work with it from a shadow work perspective. I wouldn't say it's straight up just a shadow work perspective deck, though. It's not just a shadow work oracle. I think you could very easily take that to a shadow work space, especially because it is set up like a haunted manor. And so you can visualize moving through the rooms as moving into your own shadow wounds. So I shouldn't say only rooms because it's a landscape, really, right? Like there's a blueprint and a structure and a landscape to this deck. So I think you can definitely use it for shadow work. I don't think it's a straight up shadow work deck like Shadows of Darkness. This is not the same. This is more of an all-arounder, and it's a great kick-ass clarifier. And it's to the point. There doesn't need to be a lot of prevarication with this deck. There isn't a huge amount of storytelling unless you want to create the story, which, let me also say, this is a great deck for storytelling from a journal perspective or a writing perspective. This is a wonderful deck to be able to tell stories with, because you're literally moving through the rooms. Like, one of my favorite things when I was little, we did have the board game Clue. And I used to love that board game because you moved through the rooms, right? Of course, I always wanted to be Miss Scarlet. But this deck reminds me from a storytelling perspective of how easy it is to build a story based on the rooms, the setting, the space that you're walking into, right? The symbols that are very clear as to what they represent. And this deck really covers that. The other thing for me aesthetically is it's basically like living in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula movie, which is pretty much how I always want to spend my life. So this is aesthetically everything I could ask for and more. Sirian knocked it out of the park. I 100% recommend this deck, especially if you're drawn to the imagery and I'm going to show you some of that now. But like I said, I have a full unboxing down below with every card shown. But if you enjoy the imagery and you enjoy this aspect of tools, rooms, and symbols that you're working with, then you're going to love this deck. Now, I do use reversals with this deck. I don't use reversals in every deck, but I do use reversals in this deck. I find that this Oracle deck likes to flip the image upside down, unlike Tarot of Vampires, which I don't think I'll ever use consciously chosen reversals with, because that imagery is meant to be seen upright, and Ian talks about that in the guidebook. But I do like using reversals in this deck. Oh my god, this image. Oh, I love this image so much. It's so beautiful. Look at that. Oh, it's like everything. So it's like living in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is my life goals. So aesthetically, I adore and love this deck. I mean, it's black and red. Those are my signature colors. So if you're drawn to it from that perspective, you will not be disappointed. The clarity that the deck offers, I also think you can really find in the title and keyword or key phrase choice on the card itself. I will say the Haunted Manor guidebook, it's not as... I really love the Earth and Bone Oracle guidebook and Shadows of Darkness guidebook. Both of those Sirian is very precise with. This guidebook feels a little bit less precise and more like, here's what it could mean, but it could also mean this, and it could also mean this. And that is sometimes too many different directions for me. So I enjoy the guidebook, and I'm not saying don't reference your guidebook here, but for me, I really like the keyword and the phrase, and that's where the sweet spot is for me, as far as giving me a jumping off point to trust my intuition. So for me, this is not my most favorite guidebook of Sirian's, but it's still a great guidebook. Like, if you're concerned, am I going to be able to understand what the cards mean if you're new to working with Oracle decks? 100%. This is me just saying something, speaking honestly to how I've experienced working with the deck. But like I said, this is in my top 5 Oracle decks of all time. So that's not me saying that the deck isn't worth purchasing. I do think this deck is worth the investment. I will be purchasing a second copy because I don't want to be without this deck. So please don't, I love this deck. But I do find the guidebook to be a little bit different than Sirian's other guidebooks. And we don't always have to be the same, right? So that's not a bad thing. But there are a lot of options given for meanings within the guidebook. And oh, I love this card. This reminds me of like Lovecraft meets like my fantasy library in my mind. But yeah, This deck is stunning. I'm going to show you 2 more images, and then I want to give a sample read for you so you can see how special the deck is for clarification. And let me just see. This reminds me of a Bosch painting. This, I love this image. It's so beautiful. And then hearth, value your worth. I love that. Like, see, it's very easy and very clear to understand what the card means right there. So yes, absolutely. Please don't discount the guidebook, but also like you have everything that you need right here as well, which is really nice. And again, it makes it just a beautiful clarifier. I just wanted to see this one. I love this one. Gargoyle, silence your inner demon. It's so beautiful. Oh, Sirian, you knocked it out of the park, my dear. I fucking love this deck. Love this deck. It's probably going to be in the top 5 list for my Oracle decks. And it's just such a great all-around deck. So I want to give you an example of how you can use this to clarify. So let's say I'm going to my Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Let's say I want a message from a guide. If this little mini pull resonates for you, please feel free to take it. Let's get a message from a guide for those of us who watch. Ooh, 5 of Wands. So when we look at this as a message from a guide or a face of deity that we're connecting with, we might be being asked to really be confident in who we are and to stand up for ourselves, to allow ourselves to be seen amongst our peers, amongst the people that are kind of on the same stage as us, allowing ourselves to be seen as an equal within that story. And also not letting people walk all over us can be another theme here as well, right? So let's say I want to clarify that. So clarify the message within the 5 of Wands for me, please, here. Conservatory. Embrace vulnerability here as the clarifier. So, and I want to pull this one right here. And Moon, trust the process. Both of these clarifying the 5 of Wands within tarot. So we're being asked to trust the discomfort that we might be experiencing in a dynamic with others right now. It's happening for a reason, and we're being asked to stand in our truth around the situation in order for us to experience growth and stepping into a deepening of wisdom, right? And the Conservatory with Embrace Vulnerability is saying, hold on guys, I'm getting something's coming through. The Conservatory with Embrace Vulnerability here. Yeah, see, I'm not getting the message that we want to be vulnerable in this 5 of Wands situation, but more that our authenticity, not sinking to someone else's level in the exchanges or on the stage, to use the metaphor that we started with here for this, but instead being authentic in our expression. So it's like we're not engaging in someone else's level of game playing. We're being true to who we are. We are expressing our truth, allowing ourselves to be seen. That's actually the vulnerability. That's what it is. Because it's much easier to play the game the way everybody else is playing it. But to rise above, to trust that the experience is happening so that we can understand and learn something, and to choose to be ourselves in the situation and stay true to our own perhaps personal code of ethics, that's valor, right? And so that is the message that's being given here. So you see how it's very easy to connect intuitively with like fleshing out the further meanings of the card when it clarifies. It's so beautiful for clarifying. It's just such a joy as a reader for me to clarify with. It's so easy, it's so fluid, and it's such a conversation. That's what I want to say about this deck. It's so easy to have a conversation with this deck as a reader. So Let me show you just so that you can also see the all-around aspect of this deck. Let's say we want to do a pull. Let's do a daily draw from the deck. So let's just do a draw for what we need to know energetically at this time. What do we need to know energetically at this time? Library, there's always more to learn, reversed. So as a daily draw message, we may be being asked to stop looking outside of ourselves for answers, to stop kind of chasing the next thing to learn about, and instead to use the tools we already have at our disposal in order to understand what comes our way today. So instead of trying to distract ourselves with scrolling or let me look that up, let me search that, maybe we could take a moment and check in with our own intuitive wisdom or the wisdom of the study and the learning that we've already engaged in to give us the insight into how to handle the situations that we might need to engage with as we move throughout the day. I also get a sense here that if we have been kind of in hermit mode, perennially, eternally being the student, it might be time to step up and share from a space of being a teacher or a mentor or someone with wisdom to share with others. How would it feel to share something that you have deep understanding around with others and not need to be silent in order to be safe? This is something else that we might be called to explore with the library card showing up in protection for us today. Another theme here could also be maybe you're getting some advice from someone, but they don't really understand the whole situation, or maybe they're not the person to be taking the advice from. Just because someone gives us advice doesn't mean that we have to take it. And it also doesn't mean that it's the right choice for us to make on our paths. So again, how can we trust the wisdom within ourselves in order to understand if we need to take on that advice or not? So you see how there's layers and layers, and you're moving through, and you get a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. It's such a beautiful deck to do that with. I really love this deck, guys. I highly recommend it. If you feel drawn to the artwork, if you're drawn to the aesthetic of this deck, I mean, hello, it's giving life for me. Then I think you will not regret purchasing this deck. And like I said, this is one I'm actually going to purchase a second copy of so that I have a backup for. That's how beautiful and special and unique I think this deck is. Sirian, you knocked it out of the park. Please keep making decks like this for us. And please keep making decks that you are called to make, because each of your decks that I have in my collection are each so unique and so different in beautiful ways, where I'm able to bring them into my practice in ways that are truly valuable. And you create decks that are special, that are real, and we feel the authenticity and the process and the love and the truth of your path that you bring to your decks. So please keep making decks for us. We need it. We need decks. We need more decks like that in our collections, you know. And again, decks don't have to all be carbon copies of each other, but it's about the authenticity of the process, kind of like the Five of Wands with the Conservatory card clarifying. So I hope you are all doing well out there in the world. I hope if you're on the fence about this one, this final review helps you. It's a total favorite of mine. I absolutely love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's definitely going to be on the next installment of Date My Decks, I promise. And I am sending you all, as always, oceans of love, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.